Hi, everyone. Welcome to SPM Academy. Today, we're talking about how you can untrap capital from zombie projects, empower a continuous value engine with SPM AI agents, and lean portfolio management. I'm your webinar host, Deborah McGrath, Principal Product Marketing Engineer with ServiceNow. I'm joined as always behind the scenes by my co-producer, John Lim, who's a Senior Product Marketing Manager with ServiceNow. You can scan this QR code on this slide to register for upcoming SPM Academy webinars or to view this webinar and other past webinars again. Today, we have two SPM subject matter experts joining us for a discussion and demo. Fred Champlain, Agile Evangelist, and Spencer Fraze, Solution Consultant. Fred is with our portfolio management business unit, and Spencer is part of our amazing solution consulting organization, and he's focused on technology workflows. Both of them have deep expertise across our ServiceNow product portfolio. Before I turn it over to these two, let's take a quick look at our safe harbor notice. While most of what we'll be discussing are features that are currently available, this presentation may include forward-looking statements reflecting our beliefs, all based on current information available, but our actual results may differ and should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. So let's now welcome Fred and Spencer.
Thanks, Deborah. Great to be here.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, zombie projects, those undead initiatives that seem to linger on, even though they drain time, money, and resources without delivering meaningful value. Should we be frightened?
Deborah, I think so. We'll take a quick look at what the impact of zombie projects on organizations. But first, let's talk about what a zombie project is. First of all, the reason that we're talking about zombie projects today is fundamentally what we know is that enterprises can only respond to change as fast as they can reallocate capital, as fast as they can reallocate resources, money, people, ultimately down to capital. And so McKinsey did an interesting published an article, very interesting result that essentially says the companies and enterprises that can reallocate capital effectively, meaning timely, perform twice as well as companies who do not have the ability to reallocate capital. So when we're talking about reallocating capital, what we're really referring to is the ability to rebaseline a budget, to reallocate an allocation to a program, a project, a product, whatever it might be in your organization. What was really interesting was the follow-on in the article, and even though this is from 2016, it's highly relevant. I'm sure these percentages have maybe bumped up a little bit, but what was really impactful is a third of the companies surveyed reallocate a measly 1% of their capital from year to year. So when we're talking about cycle time and competitiveness and how fast AI is accelerating product markets, and we know it's just going to continue to accelerate, we think that there's only 1% of the companies are able to move money fast enough. That's really concerning. So the answer is, Deborah, yes, we're concerned about what is it preventing the reallocation of capital. And part of the premise here, at least part of it, is these projects are called zombie projects. So let's talk about that a little bit. The problem with these projects is that they effectively trap capital. It's capital that we might otherwise get better performance from. And overall, based on an HBR article, it is a 30% impact by eroding enterprise value by 30%. That's really, really a big chunk of value that's being effectively locked up and trapped. So what are zombies? Zombies are projects that, for a lot of different reasons, fail to fulfill their promise. And yet they keep shuffling along. And if you've managed a portfolio, you own a portfolio, it might be a product portfolio, it could be any kind of portfolio, you know this problem. In any large organization, there's this ongoing issue of the projects, the programs that keep getting funded. They perform well enough by metrics to stay above the line, and yet sometimes based on value delivery, they should not be above the line. It's hard to see this sometimes, especially for more complex programs and products. It's really hard to see what those signals are. The interest in a zombie, it's one area. There's other areas to go after in terms of operating efficiency, but zombie projects are one of the biggest chunks of capital that gets tied up. So our goal is how do we free it up? How do we help companies perform better? The faster you can move, the more agility you have in the market, meaning that you're more responsive to changes in the market. And that's critically important to remain competitive. The world is changing faster than our traditional systems can keep up with them. And that's a really critical element here as well. We need to make sure that as we think forward about what does it mean to have strategic portfolio management, what does it mean for lean portfolio management, we need to be thinking differently about our processes and how we use AI. If we use AI to essentially accelerate our current processes, that might be a good start. But it's likely that those current processes are really not serving us well, especially if we have zombies, right? We're not catching something where we want to free up this capital. John Kotter, who's pretty well known, he's got several books. One's called Accelerate, had a great observation. And that is that the organizations that we created in the 20th century were designed much more for reliability and efficiency than for agility and speed. There's been a lot written recently about structures around organizations. There's a recent article in Harvard Business Review about the octopus organization versus the Tin Man organization, thinking about Tin Man organizations that kind of fit this description. They were designed with different objectives than what we need now. Fundamentally, what we'd like to do is look at how do we effectively build a system that can identify zombies and other areas that we want to free up our budget and the ability to move budget more quickly. We have a continuous value engine that we really want to create this continuous value engine using SPM. And what this is a value-centric value management system that brings together several elements of SPM across the platform, actually. We have goals and OKRs, of course, for our alignment. We have the ability to prioritize our work, our opportunities, our investments. We employ continuous roadmap and planning, thinking about this on a continuous basis as we receive feedback on our investments. We have a roadmap. We're constantly thinking about a roadmap and what our next horizons are of investment. We have to think about what our scenarios are and think about those outcomes. And a lot of organizations, as we'll talk about later, are adopting a shorter cycle of funding, typically more quarterly versus annual. But a lot of organizations, the vast majority of organizations, still fund at an annual cycle. They may do some interim adjustments, and that's great, that's necessary. And some organizations are now more formally adopting a quarterly planning and funding cycle. You don't want to go too quick about it. You don't do it weekly, right? Especially for budgets. You certainly can perform your work weekly, and that's very valuable in certain areas, maybe innovation, where you need to move quickly and validate or invalidate a concept. Pretty much for funding, though, quarterly is a great advancement at this point. Some organizations are very effective, and they found ways to do this in a cycle time that works well for them that might be even shorter than a quarter. It's about knowing what our value is, our value realization, being able to measure and quantify it, because that's what informs our next investment. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the context of a lean startup cycle. What makes this possible? So we have adaptive strategic planning, we have intelligent opportunity identification, we have smart portfolio and roadmap optimization, and we have frictionless execution. We're really trying to shake out time to execute here and operate more efficiently. That's always a quest. And then continuous value improvement. All of these together, with all the different roles you can see here, uh, from an SPM perspective on the platform, is our great opportunity to go from strategy to value delivery. So how do we do this? We certainly want to leverage AI. We want to put AI to work to deliver business reinvention, transformation, reinvention, even more so with AI agents. As we look at this, we think about the strategizing. We think about alignment. Of course, we always need that continuous alignment. The faster you move, the more important alignment is because you can go out of alignment quicker. And then, of course, we want to deliver value faster. And from an agile perspective, that typically means shorter increments of value so we can course correct and not get too far. And that all informs our strategy in a wonderful closed loop on the platform. Having a platform and having the tools alone and having AI alone doesn't necessarily solve the problem. We also need some process. So when we think about process, we want to update what we're doing. We want a shorter cycle time. And so for a lot of organizations, they've looked at different ways of working at a portfolio level. And one way of doing a shorter cycle is in the scaled agile framework, employing lean portfolio management. Lean portfolio management is an approach where we're looking at our budgets on a quarterly basis. We're funding value streams instead of projects or programs. In some organizations, funding value streams puts the funding more in line with a product, with a customer journey, and it makes it a frictionless approach to budgeting. Sometimes if you're funding a program and there's multiple stakeholders and multiple budget lines, there can be a lot of friction in terms of prioritization and misalignments amongst multiple funding units, if you will. So the idea is let's remove that. Let's look at the value stream of where customers, our consumers, whether it's internal or external, are receiving value and line up our funding to those value streams. The way we do this is we employ what are referred to as guardrails. So how do we think about the budget guardrails? So we're thinking about investment horizons. We're thinking about what's our capacity allocations, making sure that we don't starve important opportunities and we have a balance in the portfolio, but yet we also have prioritizations as well, that we look at significant initiatives and we want to approve those fast. We do not want important things getting clogged up through approvals. So we're thinking, how do we use workflows to automate? How do we accelerate that approval process? And then we want to make sure that we're always engaged with our stakeholders. ServiceNow, SPM, the platform is fantastic for workflows and for engagement and for accelerating the approvals, for improving the engagement and awareness of our business owners, leveraging dashboards, making information available with low friction. Further about what a lean portfolio looks like. If we think about an organizational strategy in the upper left-hand corner, driving strategic themes, a portfolio vision, portfolio roadmap, and very importantly, our budget. And we think about the work to be done in that portfolio Kanban in the center, where we've got epics. Typically, if we're in an agile world, we're thinking about how to fund epics. Maybe in your organization, it might be a feature, different types of larger pieces of work, we'll say. And then we think about the value streams on the bottom. Where are we applying our budgets into providing value stream funding? So here you can see that we have epics that are being delivered. Some of those might be an enabler, might be an architecture, or some maybe a sub-assembly if you're in a product world. The idea is that we've got alignment of our funding and we remove that as an impediment to our portfolio flow. On the right-hand side, you can see that we're looking at our KPIs, we're looking at our performance, we're using KPIs to inform our OKRs. Just having OKRs alone doesn't guarantee alignment, but you want OKRs that are really aligned to that value delivery in a meaningful way, so they're not all lagging OKRs. You need to make sure that you've got some leading indicators as well. So that gives you good portfolio performance awareness and leads to better portfolio outcomes. At the core of all this is a mechanism that really underlies our continuous value engine. And what it really means at a portfolio level is that we think about epics as our opportunities for investment. We prioritize those epics, of course. We use different ways of prioritizing. Typically, if we're doing, say, if we're using a weighted shortest job first, it's a mouthful, but essentially considering the cost of delay. If we don't do something, what does it cost us? Some revenue. It might be compliance. It could be other penalties for not implementing an epic. So we have to balance that across multiple epics, find our best value. So once we do that, we create a hypothesis. And the reason for this hypothesis is effectively when we're making a bet, when we invest in an epic. But it's not like a Vegas bet, it's an informed bet. But nonetheless, we're not sure what the outcome is. First of all, we do an epic that's relatively small. We break it down maybe into features that we can go off and essentially test our idea and see are we going to get what we expect. So that's your hypothesis. After you've put your epic or your feature into production, and you get some feedback, whatever that is, your KPIs, was the outcome sufficient? Does it meet what you consider success for your investment, right? Is it the right ROI? That ROI could take any number of forms of value coming back. If it does, well, continue building out. If it doesn't, though, and this is the hard part, is do you pivot? Do you stop? And do you go somewhere else? And organizations have a very hard time with the pivot to stop. It's just not in our nature because once you've made investments, you think about sunk cost, you think about the maybe sometimes political factors that aren't necessarily data driven, but more organizationally driven. What we're trying to do is shake that out in our continuous value engine and be able to use data, use AI to accelerate these decisions. So you can see the closed loop here back into the portfolio and at the next funding cycle, and that might be, again, quarterly, we get another opportunity to make a even better investment in the next portion of an epic or a new epic, depending on what the needs of the organization are. So finally, just a real quick view. We won't go through all of the details here, but what this does is build strategy to value with OKRs, building out our strategic roadmap, continuous planning. We're also considering our architecture. After all, architecture, whether it's enterprise architecture from an IT perspective or product architecture, is frequently a source for dependencies that can become blockers and impediments. Of course, we go through a continuous prioritization cycle here, and we're doing roadmap planning on a continuous basis. The critical piece of roadmap planning is we got multiple lenses. We're looking through the value stream at a product level. SPM provides several opportunities for different lenses to be used, depending on exactly what your organization needs. And finally, we have delivery. Again, very flexible. SPM delivers both using SAFe, any kind of agile actually, with enterprise agile planning. We can support waterfall, plan-driven, events-driven planning, and PPM, and we do hybrids. So we can actually have agile phases within a waterfall program, and that fits a lot of organizations for various reasons. And also the type of work sometimes lends itself to a hybrid. So from strategy to value, continuous value engine, and we want to hunt those zombies. We want to free up that capital. Let's see this in action. I'll turn it over to Spencer.
Awesome. Thank you, Fred. Okay, we're going to be starting off in our strategic planning workspace. And in here, we have multiple different portfolios of either work with projects and demands or strategic roadmaps. We're going to first dig into our strategic roadmap, where our executive is on here to check on the progress and the status of our initiatives. So clicking into here, first thing you're going to see within this strategic roadmap is, of course, the roadmap with our different initiatives. And at a quick glance, you can see high-level status of the initiative, percent complete, and basically the progress of that initiative. So executives do struggle to see the full picture of progress, risk, and value across all their strategic initiatives. Our executives would like to dig into our AI transformation, for instance, initiative, since it is in the red and AI is a big focus for us. Using AI agents, we can help to generate an instant connected snapshot of this initiative and its underpinning work. You think about the associated OKRs, the risks, the dependencies. So we're going to go ahead and open up our analysis panel to gain some insight into our AI transformation initiative here. What I can do is go ahead and ask Now Assist to create a snapshot of our AI transformation initiative. What the AI agent is going to do is going to pull the related records across the platform that are related to this initiative around the OKR, and it's going to create a document for us. So what this will eventually allow us to do is to make an appropriate decision how to move forward. We're using AI to identify zombie projects or initiatives or things that are delivering or under delivering value. So using AI to find those signals and pivot as needed. So it went ahead and created that document for us. And we're going to close this Now Assist panel here. So what AI has done is it's gone through and made a document that is going to summarize this AI initiative. And this is something we could share out, but on here, it's going to give you an overview. It's going to give you an overview of the financials, the progress of our planning intervals in here, risks that are associated, and any dependencies that are in conflict. Now, we could also use AI to summarize if we wanted to. We could summarize this document, get a summary, or even ask it questions like what are the risks within here and have a conversation using Now Assist. But what we want to focus on is as we were reading through this, we noticed that there's a dependency and conflict. And one of the ones that has the most benefits at risk is our sentiment analysis and customer feedback versus the control remote access. These projects are dependent on one another and there's a risk involved. So we're going to go ahead and move to our technology transformation portfolio. And we're going to use our scenario planning and go into more of that continuous roadmap planning to free up this dependency and move this initiative back into the green. In our technology transformation portfolio, we have demands that are project requests, we have epics from the agile sense, and our projects all in one. And what we're seeing here is a list of these different projects. Now, when we're thinking about these different projects, we can think about this from a platform perspective because these project requests could be informed from IT tickets or IT operations. Like, hey, an app is running on an old technology and we need to move that app to the cloud. Or maybe there's so many changes or incidents on a specific service that we need to rationalize the application and move its user base. These are different ways you can start to think about the projects and things that are coming into this view, into our technology transformation view, getting a full picture of our IT stack and being completely informed in all aspects of IT using the ServiceNow platform and turning that information into projects and eventually aligning that to goals and budget. Now in here, we're seeing a ranking within here as a priority, saying this is number one, this is number two. And we can also see associated information like what primary goal that project might be aligned to. But we want to focus on is adjusting that our roadmap using our scenario planning tool. So what this tool is going to allow us to do is go into simulation mode. So we have a current plan that we're working. We've prioritized based on our OKRs, based on our strategy. But again, we've noticed that we might need to make a change based on some of our dependencies and some of our benefits at risk that AI has brought up to us. So in this simulation, we can make changes and edit our portfolio without messing up the current portfolio that we've already prioritized. So within here, we're able to see our financials, how close are we to our simulated budget as we go in and maybe decide to maybe prioritize certain projects. We're going to see how that adjusts our budget within here. And we're also going to see how it affects our strategic alignment. By turning on these specific projects or moving them into priority, how is that going to affect our strategies and goals as well? What we want to focus on right now is our dates. So we want to quickly move our capital if it's stuck in projects and move projects not bringing value, make sure we're not going over in budget. And again, ensuring these changes are aligned to our strategy. But we want to move to our roadmap and free up some of our dependencies. So we did notice from AI that our sentiment analysis for customer feedback that's dependent on getting done to start control remote access. There is a dependency issue. What we can do is start adjusting the timelines. So maybe we need to move this project back or potentially move this project forward to free up that dependency and make sure that we're completing our projects and giving enough space for the project to be done to start the next one and free up the dependency and the benefits that are associated to that. We could also visualize the financials within here and seeing as we turn on specific projects, we can get more in depth on the fiscal periods and the budget toward each of the specific projects as we turn them on and off and what we're forecasting to spend for each of those projects, which is going to be building into those financial numbers. Lastly, what we can do is once we're done editing this portfolio plan and building our scenario, we can actually go ahead and compare the scenarios to our current plan. We could have multiple scenarios and compare and see what are the adjustments we made, what are the trade-offs we're making. So for instance, here's our current plan and our budget versus our targets. And we have our prioritized AI, which is the scenario that we just edited. And we can see exactly how our budget is changed, where our budget is going in terms of our goals, as well as that strategic alignment. You can see, for instance, we may have a lot more projects that are going towards our AI drive top line growth goal. And then also, what are we trading off? What are we adding to the plan or getting rid of within here? You can see what we've removed and what we've added. And we can eventually approve this scenario. And what that's going to do is communicate with the rest of our management, with the rest of our project managers, our developers, our scrum masters, that we're going to shift our plan. We're going to reprioritize this portfolio and they can adjust accordingly from that. So this is truly a continuous cycle, a continuous value engine, as Fred was saying, where we don't have zombie projects running amok, and that as scenarios change, as we get information from AI, that we're able to make those adjustments in our scenario planning and reprioritize and ensure that zombie projects are not hurting us in the long run. All right, so Fred, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Spencer. As we wrap up here, what we're really looking at is a new paradigm. And it's really a shift in that paradigm. Using AI agents behind the scenes, being able to create scenarios, apply scenarios, and really create that continuous value engine. What we're doing is sensing and suggesting actions, deciding on those actions, and actually implementing those actions by, in this case, selecting a new scenario and putting it into effect. What we're doing is really creating a smarter investment capability, optimize our resources, accelerating our delivery, and having better outcomes, of course, driven autonomously with AI. And all of this results in the ability to find, to sense those zombies that we spoke about, and to pull the capital or untrap the capital from them and put the capital in a better investment. Using the lean startup cycle in shorter periods of investment and more frequent updates to a budget, we can be adaptive and dynamic and compete in the market much more effectively. Spencer, thank you very much for that demo. And Deborah, back to you.
Thank you, Spencer and Fred. Great presentation and awesome demo. I, for one, feel much more confident now about all the many ways to identify and kill those scary zombie projects, with a little help, of course, from SPM AI and Lean Portfolio Management on the ServiceNow platform. And not just helping to identify those zombies, but to help communicate what's happening with those initiatives and why to the business, as we saw with Spencer's demo. So for the land of the living, we have a few items and events to bring to your attention. First, as part of our continuous effort to improve project delivery and team collaboration, we're inviting individuals contributing to project delivery to share their experience. Whether you're a permanent or temporary team member or subject matter expert supporting multiple projects, your feedback is valuable. And as part of this survey, we're asking you to reflect on your entire workflow, from getting tasks assigned to you, notification of risks, and providing progress updates. Why participate? It's an opportunity for you to help shape the future of individual contributors to project delivery. You can share your experiences, needs, and pain points. You can influence improvements that matter to you and your team, and your responses will help us enhance the project delivery experience for everyone. Our super popular biannual SPM Vision Series is happening again in the new year on March 12th and 13th, depending on your location. Scan this QR code to register for the event. It features discussions and demos from ServiceNow customers and ServiceNow team members. This includes a keynote by Yoav Boaz, SPM and EA General Manager, and an SPM product roadmap presentation from Director of Product Management, Karina Hatfield. And the following week, on March 19th and 20th, we'll present our biannual Enterprise Architecture Vision Series. The format is very similar to our SPM Vision Series, and at this one, we'll hear from Doron Orbach, Senior Manager Inbound Product Management, about our roadmap plans for our Enterprise Architecture solution. SPM Academy will resume at the end of January 2026, when we'll launch our 7th year with all new content to help you be successful with SPM, Enterprise Architecture, and Collaborative Work Management. Remember, you can register for any of our live on ServiceNow events at community.servicenow.com and register for any of our SPM Academy webinars on the community.servicenow.com by navigating to Product Hubs, Strategic Portfolio Management, and then Events. Thank you again, Fred Champlain and Spencer Fraze. Thank you to my great co-producer, John Lim. We have incredible appreciation for you, our SPM Academy audience, for joining us on the last Thursdays of each month for the last 6 years. Happy holidays to you all, and we'll see you at our next SPM Academy webinar in 2026.